Hey everybody, this is Mike with BuzzTox, and Mandalorian Episode 3 just came out, and I couldn't be more excited. If you haven't watched it yet, be sure to go and check out our spoiler-free reaction and review video, which was posted earlier today after I watched the show this morning. That video goes more into how I felt about the episode, rather than diving into the deep content of it that we've got here. So please watch it, like it, comment, and subscribe so that I can keep talking about Star Wars and other shows all day long. Right now, we're going to go scene by scene here through episode 3 and flesh things out a bit for you guys. The episode begins with the Razor Crest coming out of hyperspace. There's no music in the scene, but heavy on the sound effects, and I'm liking that trend in the show. We do get a lot of music throughout the show in this Western/Japanese samurai movie style, but often it's absent or it's very faint. It's not driving the show, but instead it's complementing the action that happens. The baby crawls out of its crib here and tries to play with a knob, while we get this holo transmission from Greef Karga congratulating the Mandalorian for a job well done. He's got the bounty. And he reminds us that the danger that the Mandalorian is going to put the child in when Karga states that he doesn't know whether the bounty will be eaten or killed and hung up like a trophy. The Mandalorian chastises the baby in this scene about the knob, but then we see him glance back. And with that simple glance, we understand that the Mandalorian is struggling with his decision to hand it over. He lands on this rocky volcanic Outer Rim planet from episode 1 where the Mandalorian Enclave, Greef Karga, and the client are all located. We get another market scene with droids and different aliens, and I'm enjoying the variety we're seeing in the set design and the different species that exist here in the show. Some people are complaining that there's just too many city and market scenes so far, and again, there's a lot of them in here. But I think it's them just trying to get their money's worth for all the time it must have taken to design and build. And I give them credit for not just throwing up this green screen and a mass of CGI credited backgrounds characters. One thing that I found strange was that the valuable baby was exposed in this scene. Why isn't he covering him up? But then I got to thinking that maybe the Mandalorian subconsciously wanted to have him exposed and look vulnerable so that he would be attacked again. It would give him an excuse to leave with the child and think more on this moral predicament that he's in. Plus, it allowed us as the audience more time with that baby so that we can grow our own deeper attachments to it. Now we go down to the client's compound, and again we see that gatekeeper droid that the baby looks up to in awe. The chit opens the door, where he's greeted by a pair of dirty, worn-out looking stormtroopers. These are remnants of the Empire, now seemingly mercenaries working for the client. The baby frowns. He's seen these guys before, and he knows they aren't nice. He looks up at the Mandalorian in concern, and they go in together. We then see the Mandalorian's concern for the baby when one of the stormtroopers is a bit rough with that baby cradle. The doctor and the client are excited to see the child. They must have had it before with all the fobs they have that are connected to it biometrically. The doctor scans it and is happy to see that it's very healthy. Was he also getting a midi-chlorian count from it at this time? Or do you think that that kind of tech has vanished with the fall of the Jedi? Now, the Mandalorian wants to know how many fobs were given out. And the client states that it was too important to only send one bounty hunter. He needed to ensure that he received the package. And this seems to satisfy the Mandalorian, but I was left wondering, if this is the reason, then why did IG-11 try to kill it? And why during the last episode did one of the Trandoshan bounty hunters also try to destroy the child when he got disintegrated in the process? And I think that some of the bounty hunters were sent without the doctor knowing about it, almost as if the client really preferred it dead rather than alive. I mean, it's a simple answer to this complex problem, and it brings order to this chaotic situation. And this order, that's the ideals of the Empire, which the client, as an old-school imperialist, has. Now, the client gives him 20 barbs of Beskar as a reward, and the child is taken away, crying as it goes. The client is surprised to hear that the Mandalorian wants to know what they will do with the child. It's against the guild code to speak of such things after the transaction has occurred. And more stormtroopers come in, and the client reminds him that he's just been given a fortune in Beskar. He can use that to replace his armor. He warns him by saying that the Mandalorian are now more rare than the Beskar, and it seems that the Empire was responsible for their status as an endangered species after the Great Purge. Then we flash to our title and learn that this is Chapter 3, The Sin, and we're going to be dealing with Mando's guilt and internal conflict over what he's just done. He goes through the streets again, takes his Beskar to the Mandalorian Enclave. We see at least 10 Mandalorians milling about in the halls as he goes through. They see the package and know what's inside, probably with this mix of awe and jealousy. They must all know him in some capacity and have a history together. We see the Mythosaur skull symbol, which Kuil mentioned Mandalorians riding in the last episode. And then it pans down to our armorer, who I noticed has spikes on her helmet, which to me resemble a crown almost. And I thought in episode 1 that she was high in position, but I didn't notice the spikes on her crown. And she would be high because of the importance of her job. But now it seems that she's actually the leader of this community, which I didn't put together last time. Some of the Mandalorians who noticed him start to file into the room, and Mandalorian, he wants his full armor. But the Smith warns him that she'll do it, but it's going to bring him attention. He'll stand out in that full suit of Beskar, and this could be very dangerous. It'll convey wealth, power, and both of which will be sought out by others, and this will create conflict where he might not want any. And to prove her point, one of the Mandalorians picks up the steel and tries to downplay our hero's success and rise in power. He says that the steel was taken during the Great Purge, and the Mandalorian is a coward for working with the Empire that has driven them all underground. They fight, pull out their vibro blades, and these are common weapons used in the Star Wars universe. The armorer then reminds them that the Empire is gone, the Beskar is back in the right hands, and that their roles chosen as Mandalorian is to be both hunter and prey. It's a dangerous life, one a coward would avoid. She asks him a core tenet of their society, have you removed your helmet? No, he replies. Has your helmet ever been removed by others? To which he says no. And this settles things down. So, will we ever see our Mandalorian without his helmet? Do we get to see Pedro Pascal? And if we do, does that mean he'll have to break a very important code of his society? Must he give up being Mandalore if he does? Now, the armorer tries to give him a Mudhorn signet now, because he fought one in his journey, but he refuses, saying it wasn't an honorable kill. He says he was helped by an enemy, one who didn't know he was an enemy, and this bit of dialogue infers that he has some level of guilt over deceiving the child into thinking that he was going to protect it. He gives some of the Beskar to the foundlings, maybe as a way to suppress his own guilt over his sin. We then get another forging / flashback scene, and this is really one of the only things which wasn't wonderful about this show. I'd really prefer to have our mysterious stranger remain mysterious. I don't need to know his childhood traumas. I don't need to know that he doesn't like droids because his family got killed in the Clone Wars by separatist droids. Mystery breeds intrigue, and if you're going to lose interest, you're going to lose that interest if you go too deep with him so fast. We see a droid over the child at the end of this flashback scene, and I'm going to assume that we'll see it get killed by a Mandalorian who saves him and shows him the ways of the Mandalorians. Just please don't let it be Jango Fett. I'd love these things to just stay separate from that Skywalker line. Next scene, we see Karga being tough with a lousy bounty hunter who's wearing armor similar to the UB's bounty hunter that Leia impersonated in Return of the Jedi. He calls him a sand breather, though, so maybe this is a Tusken Raider turned bounty hunter. If it is, then what are all these species from Tatooine doing here, who I thought they were low-tech and not spacefaring? Anyway, Karga tells him to hit the bricks, and then we see a Zabrek at the bar. This is the same species as Darth Maul, and I think he comes in a little later in a couple of little tiny cameos. Mando enters in full armor, and everyone is impressed / jealous. His legend is growing, and they all know he succeeded where they failed in bringing that big bounty in. Now, Carl Weathers is great in this scene. He's happy to see the Mandalorian. Mando has just made him a lot of money, and we see the Beskar in his breast pocket, which will come into play later. Karga wants to make him a friend. He yells to the others that he's a partner now. And this might be to prop himself up, but it also might be to protect both the Mandalorian and himself by warning the others that those two are tight now, so don't mess with either one of them. The Mandalorian just wants his next job, and Karga tells him to relax and have some spice. This is a drug of some kind from the Star Wars universe that's mined in Kessel. And he tells him also, go to the Twi'lek baths and relax. Mando insists that he just wants another job, and he gets one going after a Mon Calamarian nobleman's son. He also asks Karga about what the client will be doing with the child, showing his continued concern. The guilt is still bothering him. And he tells Karga that they work for the Empire. Karga says it's against code to talk about it, but he can report it to the New Republic in the core of the galaxy. The Mandalorian says they're a joke, and this gives us an idea about what he thought about rebels and what he thinks now about the new central government that they're trying to build. They're not going to do anything to help. He goes back to his ship and is about to leave when he sees that knob that the baby had removed, and she must have been playing with it again. And this is our final moment of truth. It's the reminder of his sin that it makes him change his mind. And he needs to find out what's going on with that child. He goes back to the client's compound and finds the cradle in a dumpster. He knows it means that the baby will never need it again. It's in danger, if not dead. He catches the client and the doctor on surveillance talking about the child, and we get some hints at their plans. The client wants the doctor to extract the necessary materials and be done with it, while we hear the doctor state that he explicitly ordered us to bring it back alive. The client tells him to finish his business and go. From this conversation, we know now that the client was just a proxy for the plans of another. And this is likely going to be Moff Gideon, who we saw being played by Giancarlo Esposito in the trailers. He has plans with the baby and our doctor. And then we have our raid on the compound. And this is how I imagine the Mandalorian had planned his raid on that other compound in Episode 1 before it all went to hell with IG-11. We see here how the Mandalorian's greatest strengths. He's done pretty terrible so far in straight-on battles, but he can excel as a tactician and in stealth. He's surgical, breaking the gatekeeper droid to distract the front guards while taking out a wall deeper in the compound. He's mapped out the compound in his mind, being there twice before, and he stealthily works his way into the room with the doctor, taking out stormtroopers one at a time along the way. He finds the child with the doctor and a droid. This is the same type of droid that was used to torture Leia in A New Hope. And we see this genuine concern for the child given by the doctor. He tells Mandalorian not to hurt him, referring to the child. The doctor's not a hero, but he's done his best to protect the child. And the Mandalorian then tries to escape with the baby, and we see him in this showdown in the 4-to-1 odds foreshadowed in Episode 1 with those stormtroopers. He uses his whistling birds he just got made to take them all out at once, and this reminded me a lot of those Iron Man mini rockets from the first Iron Man movie, which Jon Favreau actually directed. We also learned that stormtrooper armor is pretty much useless against fire. I mean, don't you think that one roasted stormtrooper dropped just a little too quickly? Maybe he was playing possum. It happened really fast. I think I could do better without the armor. Now, I thought this was going to be it for now. He takes the baby and leaves. Show done. But then we have all these bounty hunter fobs going off at once, and I knew we were going to get something great happening next. And did we get this reappearance of the droid bounty hunter 4-LOM in this scene? He's the black droid shown with Boba Fett, Bossk, and other bounty hunters in Empire Strikes Back. And I hope we see more of him next time. But I don't think I saw him die here, so maybe he'll show up later in the show. Now, Mandalorian has this standoff with the bounty hunters led by Karga. Karga says, "I'm your only hope," echoing Leia talking about Obi-Wan in A New Hope. Now, in this scene, I like what I'm calling the realism in this unrealistic world that we keep seeing in this show. We saw him struggle with the Jawas getting things thrown at him. We saw him fail fighting the Mudhorn. And in this scene, we see him almost escaping on the speeder, but then Karga just shoots the droid. And this is as he should do. It was smart, it was practical, and the scene didn't leave the audience saying, why didn't they just shoot the droid? We see Mandalorian once again, like in his battle with the Mudhorn, facing death. He thinks that this is the end, and he's at least going to look at the child one last time before the end comes. But then we get this yes moment. I literally got up, felt like a little kid full of excitement when I saw the Mandalorian shoot up over the horizon. It was like that scene in Attack of the Clones when Samuel L. Jackson shows up with a group of Jedi to save the day. It's something that we didn't think we were going to see. Mandalorians attacking en masse, and one with a Gatling gun. It was beyond awesome for just a TV show. Now, Mando escapes with help from the Mandalorians, and he has this final showdown with Karga, once again showing that he's pretty clever by hiding out in the Razor Crest. He gets shot, and you can hear the cling of metal in that blaster. And I think the Mandalorian here realizes that he's still alive and leaves him on the planet, again showing us that he's a bit sentimental. And I thought they would leave it there and reveal to us later that Greef survived, but then he pops up, showing us the best scar we knew he had in his chest. And I think it was an unnecessary ad which should have been cut out. Also, that salute and the joke afterwards was a bit too cheesy, and I don't think that we needed it to be here at all. At the end, our hero flies off, handing back our sweet baby Yoda the knob he took and that he couldn't play with at the beginning of the show. Now, the whole thing happened in 35 minutes. And like I mentioned in our reaction and review video, it could have been a standalone short film all on its own. It left me wondering all sorts of questions like, where is he going to go? His action has forced the Mandalorians to find a new covert, as they call it, so will he try to meet with them? He's going to be hunted down by Moff Gideon and the remaining bounty hunters. Remember when the Mandalorian lands at the village and we immediately see another ship land? It looks like this mix between an airspeeder from Empire Strikes Back and the Millennium Falcon. This ship is later shown leaving right before the Mandalorian goes back to his ship, and I'm betting it won't be the last we see of it. Is that Cara Dune, our Death Trooper turned rebel turned mercenary bounty hunter character that we've seen in trailers? And when are we going to see Bill Burr, my favorite comedian, and the Twi'lek girl that we saw in the trailer? They might be the only good bounty hunters left after this episode, so I imagine they and Greef Karga will be after the Mandalorian in one of the next episodes. We know that they want the material from the child, and this is genetic, I assume. But why are they doing this? Are they want to make their own Yoda clone army? Is this a clone of Yoda? Is this Yoda's child? Or is this just another creature from Yoda's species? I want opinions and theories, okay? Do you think this is all going to tie into the rise of Skywalker and the return of the Emperor? I personally want the Mandalorian to be a standalone thing, giving distance from the Skywalker saga. It's a big galaxy after all, and lots can happen out there. But let me know what you think, and remember that it really helps that you like and subscribe and comment below. Thanks again, everybody.